Larry Gross here, and I am with Alejandro Escovedo, who is on Mountain Stage today. A man who just made a great new album. It's called Street Songs of Love. And as your solo albums, how many have you made now? What is this, number what?
10 or 11, something like that. Yeah.
You've been making music for 30 years?
35 years, yeah.
Starting in Texas, California, New York City, and back.
California.
First.
California, San Francisco, then New York, and then back to Texas.
Right.
And I've been
born
in Texas.
Though.
Yeah, it's San Antonio.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
But you moved to California to be a part of the scene there, and you've been making rock and roll of various shades and flavors.
Yeah.
And I guess you're still considered rock and roller, or some people would say singer-songwriter with a band.
Yes.
But it still rocks.
Band.
It still rocks pretty good.
Yeah.
Well, you come from a musical family.
I do.
So tell me, how did you end up from San Antonio, where you're born? How did you California was the first?
Well, no. See, we moved to San Antonio in '57. I was born in '51 in San Antonio, and my father was a plumber.
Okay.
And the story was that he took us there because it was a right-to-work state, and he wanted to join the unions, and he wanted better work and pay, and so he moved us all out. We went on actually with the intention of going on vacation.
To California?
That's what we were told. We never went back to Texas. Yeah, we stayed in a little town called Huntington Beach, California.
Right.
Found relatives
Yeah,
there.
that's right outside L.A. too.
Yeah, so that was '57.
That's where the Golden Bear was, wasn't it?
Right,
Club?
exactly. I wrote a song about it.
Did you?
Yeah.
It's a great club.
Yeah, that was a wonderful club.
Yeah.
I got a dream, do you wanna be in it too? You can be with me and I can't be with you.
You started out, you explored the punk side too.
I did.
Of rock and roll. Yeah. How did that come about?
Well, because I always just loved, when I fell in love with the English Invasion stuff, it was always the Yardbirds and the Pretty Things, the Stones, more of the R&B kind of, influence bands, the rave bands. And so that led to a whole wave of American bands kind of emulating these English bands, and it became garage rock, We had, like every neighborhood or town had a band that was either the Stones or the Beatles,
Yeah, right, that's true.
And we had one called the Black and Blue, and they were my favorite band. They were a Stones band, So, yeah, it was all that kind of stuff.
This was still at Huntington Beach?
Yeah, and that's what led to punk rock for me.
The group Rank and File. It started in California, went to New York. What was, you just mentioned a moment ago, the San Francisco concert with the Sex Pistols. What's that?
Right. That was the last show the Sex Pistols did on their tour. And the Nuns, which was the band I was in, and the Avengers, another local band, opened up for that last show.
That must have been interesting.
Oh, it was crazy. It was crazy. It was, we made the mistake of, in those days, the media had caught on, and so it was starting to change. It was no longer kind of an inner city thing. It was more suburban, so there's all these guys coming, much more male-dominated than it used to be. So we had 5,000 people spitting on us, And that was supposed to be a sign of
respect,
confirmation of some kind. Yeah. So we made the mistake of spitting back.
Uh-oh.
Oh yeah.
I hope you live long enough to forget half the stuff they've taught you. 'Cause when it's all said and done, I hope you've got your own set of rules to hang on. Yeah, I'd buy you a smile in a minute. Oh, what would you wear?
On your solo records, a lot of your producers have actually been guests on Mount Stage, which is coincidental, but very interesting people. Chris Stamey, John Cale, for example, speaking of Velvet Underground. How did you hook up with John?
Well, John really, I met John when I lived in New York. I had met him, I played it with a woman by the name of Judy Nylon, and she had sung on a lot of John's records and Brian Eno's records. And so that became an association with them because we were all managed by the same woman, Jane Friedman. And then when I became ill, you know, in 2003, I think it was, that's when John really came to my aid and really helped me a lot.
In case you don't know, Alejandro had hepatitis 3, and it was a life-threatening situation, but he pulled through with the help of family, friends, and a lot of musicians. And we talked about John Cale, but there were a lot of others. Did a tribute album to help raise money, and I'm sure that was not only helpful financially, obviously, but for your spirit. It had to be great to know that so many people cared.
I've said this before, but it was the medicine that cured me.
I bet it was.
It really was. Because of that occurrence in my life, because of that event, I mean, it changed my music. I think my music got better. I think my relationship with my musicians got better. You know, everything just seemed to be more focused after that.
Before we quit, let's talk a little bit about this. Street Songs of Love. Were you ready when you went in the studio?
Yeah, we were well prepared for this record.
Okay.
After I had written about 5 songs, went back to Austin, and we set up an 8-week residency at the Continental Club. So every night, we would bring 3 new songs and present them acoustically to the audience, bring the band out, you know, just bass and drums, a rhythm section, and then play them electrically, showing them how we could come up with a quick arrangement. And the audience evolved with the songs into an album by the end. And so, like, everything that was happening around us, too, the community became part of that record.
Interesting.
This record.
I've never heard of that done before that way.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
It was amazing because, you know, you're walking on a tightrope without a net. And so, like, you know, I was ad-libbing lyrics to the very end, you know, and changing arrangements. Sometimes I would use the Austin Motel across the street as a dressing room. We'd rent a room, and we'd go in there and I'd show the band a song that night that I'd written that afternoon, and we could walk across the street and play it for the first time.
Interesting. And so they evolved there. So by the time you got to the studio, you pretty much knew.
Oh, we were living.
The record's really well produced. It's a great sounding record.
He did
a lot of variety, both in the songs and in the production. So it's great to have Alejandro back. I don't know how many times you've been on this show. It's 4 or 5 now.
4 now.
Yeah, great. The Street Songs of Love, check it out, and if you haven't already, and come see him if he comes your way. He's always has something different, something new, something interesting musically. Not only his regular band, but you bring in some great sounds, some different sounds. You do it live too, not just in the studio.
Thank you.
So what's your website?
AlejandroEscovedo.com.
Check that out so you know what his schedule is. MountainStage.org is where you can hear the show if you don't hear it on radio. It's great to have you back.
Thank you. Thank you so much.